All right.
Everybody, big round of applause. Justin and Phil, Sin City programmers.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Today we're going to talk about evals, what they are, how to use them, and really just how to test AI at scale. My name is Justin Otero. I'm a director of engineering at Navan, a co-founder at Value Driven Careers, and a host here at Sin City Programmers. So thank you all for joining, and we're going to get started. We're going to discuss challenges of AI, what an eval is. We're going to look at Braintrust, what we use to track different evals, as well as discuss how a feature can grow and the metrics that you're going to track along the way. And hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A. So, some of the things that you will experience when using AI and just testing it is managing the quality, latency, which model do you want to use, whether or not it's going to be compliant, can you get the right output, is it consistent, do you experience regressions over time, and ultimately, the cost. How much does this actually cost for each iteration, each workflow to be completed, each prompt? So, what is an eval? It is a framework of tests, really a structured way of testing and scoring the AI's performance and behavior over a given workflow, and or prompt, agentic, really like behavior, everything in between. This is really important because the way many of you are testing is just trial and error, right? You're picking something, you're trying it, you're making small modifications, but when you're trying to do this and deploy it at scale, it becomes very difficult. This is the anatomy of an eval. You have a task, which can be a prompt or a workflow. You're gonna have a data set. Really, these are your test cases that you're gonna run against, and you're gonna have a score. A score is your logic. And the main thing that you wanna look at is how does that scale and how do you experiment with this? Without evals and a way to test at scale, you're gonna mistake a demo or anecdotes, really our feelings, as evidence for strong performance. So you actually need to be able to verify and prove that you are getting good results consistently. Let's look at Braintrust. This is a tool that we have been using to measure and really run experiments on different evals. Just a disclaimer, this isn't a paid sponsorship for Braintrust, but it is a tool that really some of the best companies in the world are using to run evals. Okay, I'm gonna put this down a little bit. Oh man. Here we go. Can you all hear me still? Yeah? All right. Okay. These dark UIs. Is this better?
Yeah, no, make it light.
This might be the only time I ever advocate for light mode.
I know, right? What is it?
But I think that in this case it's warranted.
It's too easy on the eyes right now.
Okay, let's see.
It's like so easy, they're like, eh.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yes.
Awesome. So let's pretend we are building a workforce management tool. And something that all of you have maybe experienced is you have to call into work, right? Or request PTO. Here in Las Vegas, we have a lot of hospitality. Think restaurants, clubs, hotels, etc. And there are many people. And you also have like these shifts, and it's very difficult for a manager to manage everyone's schedule and to like think and really know like, oh, should Justin take this time off? Like, do we have coverage, etc. So that's the mindset we're thinking in. We are going to really try to build something to help a manager determine schedules. Inside Braintrust, you have a lot of different tools. Some of the key areas that we're going to look at today are prompts, datasets, scores, and we're going to run experiments. So let's go into prompts, and we're going to create a prompt. So this is what many of you come to know AI. You're asking a question, and you're getting an output. So we're going to call this prompt review PTO request. Let's call this V3 so I know. One of the things that's really great about Braintrust, depending on what you connect, so you can use Braintrust as a software for free. You can see in like the bottom left corner where, you know, the logs, I haven't used very much at all, so I was trying to like keep this as pristine as possible for this case. But you can use it for free, and the main thing that you're doing is connecting your API key. So if you had, you know, Claude or Gemini, you just add it in here. But what's really important is we can choose what model we want to use, and we can see exactly how much it's going to cost for input and output tokens, as well as if it's like a multimodal. So I'm going to try to save some money, and I already know that GPT 4.1 Nano is 10 cents for a million input tokens and 40 cents for output tokens. So that already there is going to give me some clarity over many, many test cases. So I'm going to choose that. And the system prompt that we're going to define is you're a scheduler recommending a action to be taken on a PTO request. So that's the main thing. Objective, review the PTO request for necessary information to recommend whether a manager approves or rejects. I'm intentionally not crafting like a really good prompt. All of you can go figure out how to write good prompts. And then that's like the high level thing. So now we're gonna say for like the main user, what they're gonna do is give the manager a clear action to take and a summary of the PTO request. Okay, there aren't any constraints. It's very simple, straightforward. Cool, we're gonna just save this now. We have this custom prompt. Oh, and we need to make sure that this is the input. So our application is gonna give it an input, and this is probably gonna be done through a UI where these are specific dates that the user selected. We know the user's information, so we'll pass along the name, and we'll give them an opportunity to write a description for this PTO request. So view this request. Okay, we're gonna save this custom prompt. We're gonna want some data to run against. So let's go ahead and create a new data set. This has a loop method, so this is their way of generating data for you. Any real data is good, right? But just for speed, let me just pull up some notes here. Cool, I got some JSON. So typical payload that we're gonna send along is like JSON. Maybe you could use something like tune as a way to like reduce input tokens if that's really important. But I'm gonna say generate a data set, 20 items. This is a a request for PTO. Description can be null. All other fields are required. Random dates. Actually, we'll just leave it at that. I think that's like good enough. It'll probably infer enough from this. So right now we're running a loop. We're just generating some data really quick. As that's going, oh, cool. It is done. Cool, so just kind of verifying really quick. Yeah, looks good. And because it knows it's an array for dates requested, there's more than one dates. And we're just gonna go ahead and accept this. Cool, so now we have some data. I'm gonna modify some of this just to make it a little bit more interesting. This one, we want it to be, 3 days here. So we're gonna say 401. I like that. Let's take another one. I'm gonna say I want this one to be a little bit closer in time. So basically a next day request, mental health day, cool. All right, so we have a data set now. V3 data. Cool. So we have a data set, we have a prompt. As I mentioned, you also need a score. So the way a score works, there's a few different options that you have, and we're going to look at some just predefined scores that I have. A very common pattern is an LLM as a judge, right? So this is where you have a LLM review the output of another LLM's, really like their output. You can also use Python or TypeScript if you want to test stuff with code. You could even add in like MCPs or tools. So if you want to like call out to another API or get like real like market data, like I don't know. Obviously you can do a ton of different things here, but we're just going to call this score V3 review request recommendations. All right. Again, I can pick the model. So like this is, again, as you start to like fine tune this stuff, you will be able to choose what's really good. Maybe you want something that's really good at reasoning, but you're also trying to manage those costs. So you want to see, does this get the right amount of output for the cost? Again, we're going to choose nano because I want something very quick. And yeah, so now we're going to say can't type, you're a manager who is busy and want to make quick decisions about PTO requests, right? So we're kind of putting some constraints, right? You don't have time to read a ton of stuff. Can you review this output for, we're going to say clarity and brevity. So we want it to be clear and we want it to be like, we'll just even be more length. Come on. You want it short. More simple. Cool. So now you can add a score. This is going to be 0 to 1. So good is going to be 1. Okay is going to be 0.5, and then bad is 0. And the threshold, we're going to say to pass is 50%, right? That's the score that you need. There are a lot of like built-in scores that you have already through Braintrust, but naturally you're going to want to create a score for everything that you want it to interpret. So I'm saying like, look at the length of it. That's something we could probably just do with code. right? So we'll actually have, I already have a score for that. Clarity, what does clarity mean? Maybe you want the output in a very specific format. We would create a score that looks for a very specific format. Cool. Let's save this. Awesome. Now let's go run an experiment. We're going to grab a prompt. We're looking at V3. And we're going to look at V3 data and review the recommendation. Cool. So we're just going to run this really quick. And you can imagine feeding this large sets of data that you've generated from whatever it is that you already have in your system. And we can really go in and we're going to change the view here. We're going to want this as a grid. And let's make the row height tall. Cool. So we can see the input that we got, and we can see what the output looked like. We can see whether or not like things were passing or failing. I'm wondering why this actually didn't give me the scores here. Let me go back to list view. Layout. Cool. Oh, V3. There we go. So right now, everything's like okay, right, from the scores perspective. But maybe we want to go and play around with this. So let's run a new playground, V3, Sin City Programmers. And now we're running a experiment. So let's grab a prompt, grab the V3, and let's also do another one. This prompt is something that I already know generates things pretty well. Here we go. Where are we? Time off suggestions. Here we go. Okay, so we can see like the original prompt here. Here's a new one. And actually what we'll do is we're gonna just copy and paste this over here. Same exact output, but let's modify like very small tweaks and see if we get better results. So let's add behavior rules. So on the system, we're gonna say, don't make up any details. Be concise, clear, professional. When using dates, we're looking for a specific format now. And don't recommend anything beyond possible actions. I haven't defined possible actions, so I'm just gonna remove that. Everything else is still the same. And we're gonna run it against our V3 score. So, and then the last thing is we need to select a data set. We'll select V3 data. And we're gonna run it. So now we can actually see this cell has not been ran yet. What's going on? Why is this? Live demos. Let me go back to playgrounds.
How about that Wi-Fi though?
Could be Wi-Fi.
What's that?
Let's see, come back in here. All right, we're running it against these. We have our data. Let's run one more time. Okay, here we go. So both of these are running the same model. And the only difference, which if we just see the diff here, is the behavior rules. And we can see now how the output is changing and how the score is actually changing on this, just by changing a few little things. So we're increasing about 25% here, 100%. Okay, this is good. Things are getting better. I think this stuff is more clear, but what I don't like is I don't like the format, right? So we can start to make some adjustments here. We'll give it an example good response. And we're gonna remove the diff. Let's see here. This is what a good response looks like. And we're gonna run again. So now, as this goes, the point being is, as we are really trying to figure out what's happening with our AI, we can make these small micro adjustments as both engineers or even like a designer, product manager, whoever, and see what's happening against real data. So now the format that we're getting over here on the right is clear, right? It's Sam Patel. We have a recommendation, approve it, and then the requests, and the reason why they should approve it is the request made more than 1 week in advance, right? As we add more scores, so what I don't like, what I would want to improve here is, let's say, I think the score isn't robust enough. Like, I want to know more explicitly, like, should you request info, right? Maybe the time window is too close, right? Approving something that is tomorrow, as a manager, you maybe want more lead time, whatever your cultural norms are. So if we go back to our data set and let's go look at this one. I think one of these, doesn't matter. We'll just mess with the first one so we can see really quickly. We're gonna say this is gonna be the 24th. So we're modifying the data because we just want to have a request that's very soon. That is like saved automatically. And then that V3 score, let's grab, and this is just some stuff I prepared ahead of time. Okay, so we're looking for the request to be clear. And actually, sorry, that is not what we want to do. We want to change the prompt, sorry. Cool, so the prompt that we're gonna modify is that system prompt where we're gonna add some constraints here. So the constraints are time off requests must be within like 7 days of current date. So anything that is sooner within 7 days, that's a problem. As well as the time off requests should that are more than 3 days long, we need more info, right? Like if you're gonna take a week off, we're gonna wanna have a conversation maybe. And these are the possible recommended actions, which is approve, deny, request more info. I'm gonna save this version and let's just run an experiment. Cool, we're gonna grab V3, our V3 data, and the V3 score. All right. Cool. So now let's just look at some of the output here. All right. Okay. So the first one is, and I think the prompt is still not, I didn't save that prompt because I was still doing an experiment. We'll just grab the full portion here. Cool. Recommend only specific actions. And then the user, we want to make sure it's in the right format. So this is going to be easier to read here. Okay. Save version. Going to run this same experiment again. You can start to see how just how quickly you can iterate through different changes. And what's great is this is similar to Git where you have version control. So you can see all of this stuff, how it's changed over time, how it's impacted costs if you change models. Experiment is currently empty. Let's go back to experiments. Run this one more time. Dataset v3 data and our score. Cool. All right, there it goes. Now it's running. Cool. So this first one that we want to look at, which we know the data is very clear. The input, let's see. One of these had data that was really close, the 12th through the 28th. One of these should have it. 24, 20th, okay. Right here, an example being the recommendation is request more info. And why the request is for a single day needs to be more than 7 days in advance. Yeah. Obviously, we still need to do some fine tuning here. As we're going through Braintrust, all of this stuff is being tracked. So if we were to go into the logs of something that was ran a couple days ago, you can see for each of these prompts, imagine you have an agentic workflow and you're trying to figure out why was the output at the very end not what I was expecting, or why is it taking long? Where in that pipeline are things failing, or where do I want to make adjustments? For each one of these, you can click through and see what the prompt was, the input, the output. So as you're doing agent to agent communication, you can see what the tokens were, how much latency there was, the estimated costs. All of this, imagine, is at scale, right? So as your users are interacting with your application, you can see very granularly what's happening and what are the costs, and if we are changing models, how does that affect stuff? So going back to Playground, we can just grab this one, for example, and we're going to take the exact same example here. And instead of Nano, we'll just grab Mini. It's a little bit more expensive. Let's grab something that's much more expensive. All right, $120 for 1 million output tokens. Let's just run this. And previously the output was very concise, but now it's taking a lot longer, right? This is a much more expensive model. It's doing more reasoning. And if the output isn't near perfect, you can safely say, why am I going to spend so much for tokens? And why do my users need to pay the price of slow responses, right? This stuff should feel instant, and it is taking so long. Yeah, none of these have come back yet. And before on the Nano, it was really, really snappy. Yeah, this is taking forever. So yeah, we can go through and see where is it at in the process. This one is still running. It's at 50%, which that's probably made up. It's not. None of these have come in yet. I'll pause here. Any questions about Braintrust or like some of the things that you can do and modify and change in here. Yeah? Oh, sorry. Yep. Thank you. You're gonna be running around getting your steps in.
Yes, sir. All right, first question.
Real quick, can you go over like super high level on the difference between the prompts and the scores? I think I got confused.
Okay. So the prompt and really like prompt and your like agentic workflow, right? Like that is like the main thing that your application is doing, right? A prompt could be recommend, in this case, recommend the manager to take an action. Should they approve or reject this request? Your score is the logic behind it. This is what's going to grade the output, right? So when we're creating a score, you can see for this PTO action suggestion score, we're making sure that like it's clear. Do you confidently know what action you should take? Are there any made up details? Is it a professional request, right? And we're giving it a score of good, bad, okay, perfect, right? Another thing that I have here as a score, as an example that you can see, is this is a TypeScript function, right? Remember the mindset of the system was you're busy, right? You don't have time to like read and like really like evaluate what should I do. So the length of the output is something I actually care about. And we can see here the ideal range is going to be between 150 and 400 characters, right? That'll return like 1, like the highest score. If it's less than 100 characters, it's a low score. If it's below 600, but between 500, it's like, it's not outrageous, right? It's not great. And then basically if you are way over that, above 20% of like the range that I've defined, it's a 0, right? Like you failed, right? So you can start to really determine the output by like grading it through a score, right? And you're running this against everything. So when a new model comes out and you're wondering, should I use it or not? Well, you can run experiments and go into the playground and see like, am I getting a better result against my scores, right? Do I get more characters, less characters? Is it more clear, right? That LLM judge, and you can actually iterate very quickly and know what's happening, how much does it cost, are there hallucinations, and everything in between. Any other questions?
I've got one before Brendan, since I'm walking over there.
Yeah.
So imagine you're a principal engineer and you're saying, we've got all these really cool tools coming out and I'm in charge of figuring out how to see a tool that's worth applying and apply it in a way that makes sense. With Braintrust, you're sitting there and you say, I have this problem, it's so vexing, and now I have Braintrust, it's gone. Sort of, what's the best use case for that? And part 2 of that is if you're doing sort of a make buy on it. Because a lot of the times with these tools, I say, well, I can make a database that checks both of these and loads this, so why would I pay the fee for it? So I'd assume the pricing would show us sort of the value on it. So those sort of 2 lenses.
Okay. So one, you're a principal engineer and you're trying to figure out what tools there are, right?
Like what are the good tools to be using right now? I don't want to be leaving off, I don't want to be using Lotus Notes in 2026.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like you're just trying to figure out like, one, how do you test your system, right? So you need visibility and you need a way to like really rapidly prototype all of those things. And one of the challenges is if a engineer is the only one that can do this, then you're already at a disadvantage. Having a tool like Braintrust enables a product manager to go in and make a small tweak and see how does that actually affect things against our system, right? Or myself as an engineering leader, like, how much is this actually costing us, right? Like, should we be using Gemini for this, or can we use Opus 4.5, right? Everyone says Opus is great. Well, Opus is slow, and that's not what you're going to want to use here, right? So I think it's one, just like, who are you enabling? How quickly can you rapidly prototype? And do you get good visibility across all this stuff, right? Those are like some of the lenses that you'll just start to consider, as well as I'm on like this free plan, right? We obviously have a whole custom enterprise edition. This, for a regular person, even if I were trying to run like social media posts, I can go put a prompt in here, experiment what it's like, and I've ran, there's been 984 scores, right? And that's what I'm doing. The only thing that I'm paying for is like token usage through my OpenAI key, which I'm already paying for. And I have to run a lot of tests in here to like really hit that max. We quickly hit that at a company, right? When you have millions of users, or call it thousands of AI calls for like a session, especially if you have like a whole like agentic workflow. So I think this is just one of those things that, honestly, for a free version, for anyone who's writing their own prompts or writing their own small apps, this is going to get you like pretty far on just free here. I think there was another question right next to you.
Yeah. So that's really cool. The example that you showed us is like someone triaging PTO requests.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm thinking more in terms of developing an app that requires, things like large generative outputs with very specific structures. Is there any support for things like structured outputs? Is there support for adjusting the temperature on the API calls?
Yes.
Because I would love to be able to rapid prototype different prompts and different settings on
Okay.
those
Yeah, we
API
had fun
calls.
with the database one time with that. When you took the temperature to 1.5, shit got weird.
Okay, perfect. Right here, model parameters. You can modify this directly here or within your experiment, within the playground as you're like messing with some stuff and you want to see like, well, if I did change the temperature, what does that actually do? As you're creating these scores, you want to score for a very specific thing, right? So if you had like a large generative like document, and we'll just say a resume, because I think a resume, it's like this structured document. I would have a score for the experience section, for the education section, for the skills, for the overview, right? I would have a score for each of those. And that score is going to have certain constraints, and that score is like an expert in that one thing, right? Now, if you have a full agentic workflow, we'll actually talk about kind of what that looks like in the next part. Any other questions before I move on? One more. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation so far. I actually had a question kind of like on like the workflow of like where this is placed in the workflow. 'Cause I know you mentioned like, you can see, prompts over your agents go over, as it's like working through the process and everything like that. Is this something where it's like deployed to like a place where it's like deployed at where you can send live data, or is it more of a, let me open up this playground, I'm going to play around in it, while live data is going on the other side?
Okay, good question. So, question is like really like, what's the workflow look like? One, these prompts can be stored in your code. What's cool about that is like, yeah, it's in your code, but you still have the problem where other people don't have access to it, right? So one of the workflows would be, let's say you have a product requirements document and you and the PM are defining what the goals are for an agentic workflow and or a specific prompt. You're defining the constraints, you're really defining that prompt, and you can put it in here and you can make a call to Braintrust to a very specific, prompt where you can grab like the ID right? Refer to the version, and then you interact with it like that. If you have it in your code, you could just be monitoring it and be looking at the calls going through Braintrust also, so you can see all along like where were there like latency bottlenecks, etc. All right, let's get back into the presentation here. So, wondering like how do you like make adjustments? David Guthrie from Braintrust, one of their solution engineer, has this basic matrix, right? Which is like if you had a good output but low score, it's probably your evals aren't good enough. If you had a bad output and a high score, again, your evals aren't good enough because you're getting a high score and you're getting crap. But at the point where low score as well as bad output, that's when you need to improve your AI, your prompt, your workflow, etc. So yeah, I think this is like a really good like just litmus test of what do I need to adjust. Let's talk about a feature and how it would grow and some of the metrics along the way. I hope you can see that. The bold stuff is like the net new. So we built this like time off suggestions. Something that I would be tracking already in the system is the manager approval rate. How often is a manager approving a specific PTO request in general, right? So if I'm looking at a bunch of McDonald's, is one manager approving more than another store? So it's already being measured. But now that I have suggestions being served up to the manager, I want to start tracking manager acceptance rate. How many times is a manager accepting the recommendation, right? That's going to give us like a clear metric of is the AI actually adding value, right? Like, are we changing behavior here, right? If it's very low, well, that's a problem. The recommendations aren't very good, or we need to make some adjustments. If it's really high, cool, like it's doing the right thing, and we should now promote these suggestions to the next phase of this feature. So now, in step 2 of this feature, we are going to build a time off reviewer, but an agentic version. So we're already going to be tracking the approval rate trend over time. But now we're actually going to take the action, right? So instead of the manager having to review it and approve it, they're just going to say, you know what, Justin wants this time off. Yes, let's do that. But what's going to happen is you might need someone to like take a second look, right? You're like, why is my manager just declining my PTO, right? Why is he always requesting info? So we're going to create an escalation feature, right? And with that escalation feature, we now need to measure the escalation rate. How many times is something being escalated? Because again, it's great that like this AI agent took the action, but now it's still creating work. Why? Because now the employee's upset. The manager now has to go deal with the disgruntled employee and review this thing that the AI did, right? Not great. But let's say we're hitting statistical significance and we want to move forward. The next evolution in this workforce management tool is we're going to have coverage suggestions. If you're ever in like a restaurant, you realize that other people may need to fill in for that person who's taking PTO, right? And there's a long list of people, and we need to figure out who is going to be next to cover that shift. So in this scenario, we are looking at the manager accepting, right? They're accepting a proposed schedule. So Justin is going to be out on Friday, and now we're recommending that Jessica takes that shift. Is the manager accepting that? is the key metric we're going to measure. And the next is, does Jessica accept her new shift, right? So that's now coverage suggestions, right? So we went from time off suggestions to a time off reviewer that's actually taking action, right? We're measuring each part of the way, and now we're recommending who's going to fill in the gaps. And the last thing that we would do is create a scheduler, right? Like a full agent-to-agent workflow where the time off reviewer now communicates with the scheduler, right? The time off reviewer approves, and the scheduler actually is going to schedule the next person. Why? Because we have data to prove that each touch point is happening and being accepted with high rates, and we get that full continuity, right? So this is how, like I would go and think about, okay, how do we introduce AI to a very specific workflow that starts with something as simple as a prompt to all of a sudden an agent is introduced and we're measuring every touch point, right? We're actually proving that we are changing user behavior as well as saving time, right? Like there's other metrics that we would probably start to measure. Like at the very beginning, it would be how long are PTO requests sitting with the manager before they approve, reject, or request info, right? So like there's a ton of stuff, but you could see really the evolution of introducing AI to a small piece of a product. So to recap, we talked about some of the challenges. We discussed what an eval is. We looked at Braintrust, which is a really great tool that I'm not an expert in, but you can see that like
You're
it's
the
really
resident
easy.
expert in.
It's really easy for just anyone to like dive in and get started. And we discussed how a feature can grow and some of the metrics that you would be tracking to really deliver value. Thank you.
Big round of applause for Justin. Come on, guys. All right. I know.
Cool.
So, who has questions before I start talking about my shit? Okay, hold up.
Yeah. Pepsi.
I think you mentioned it when you said about the little link on the bottom, but like for enterprise data, for example, like if we build in Azure only. So like if we built our models or whatever in Azure, testing through Braintrust, how would that work? Like do we just hit that endpoint and test it?
You would just add your API keys.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same way.
Yeah. So like we use like Vertex or something, right?
Okay.
Same thing,
Okay.
right? We just add your API
And you get the
keys.
same security behind it though? Like,
Yeah.
or is that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's at the enterprise scale.
Yes, and honestly, you can still add your tokens for that even at the free version. Like whatever you have, like it's just a token, and you're just passing it through Braintrust for monitoring observability, as well as like if you want to store your prompts and your scores in there, you could still have them in code. I just think that for rapid prototyping and like community like contribution, having it in Braintrust is really, really useful. Okay, we're gonna switch over to another topic, but I am looking for others who are interested in speaking here at the meetup. So if you scan this QR code, you can, share your interest of really speaking, maybe doing a live workshop. Honestly, we have a ton of different types of presentations that happen. You don't have to be an expert, but we do know that there's plenty of smart people here that have stuff to share with the community. So if you are interested, you can scan that QR code and, we can talk.
And also, you don't have to take over the whole slot. Maybe you got something you got 10 minutes on. That's fine too.
10 minutes.
So-
I'll leave this up.
No,
No, you don't want this up?
I'll tell you what I want up.
What do you want?
Gigboard.bigtb.com. I want to see it on the big screen.
Gigboard.
Yeah. .bigtb.com.
.bigtb.com. Dun, dun, dun.
I wonder if he put it in right. Oh my God, look, it's a job board. So here's what you people have just admired. So several months ago, we decided to start trying to make a job board as a community. And I loved this idea. And we kept hearing some pushback. Some of the pushback was, well, I could do this on my own. And some of our pushback on that was, well, we want to build as a community. And like, so, it's gone real slow and like progress has been made. It's been successful in some ways. But I've also come to find out it's been unsuccessful because there's been at least 2 identifiable opportunities that did not get on the job board because it did not exist. So now I pulled a Josh. You may have heard me before say, I'll just make this in WordPress. It'll take me 4 hours. That was a lie. It took about 45 minutes. So here's what we have now. For those that don't know, Brendan in the middle here, he is the lead on this. And so what I have done is I have made something we can all look at and play with. Now there is a job. Let's look up this job. It's a good job. I like the guy that's off.
But where?
Well, you go to gig seeker up at the top. So there's 2 buttons, gig offer, as if you're offering a gig, and then gig seeker. And then, there we go, full stack engineer and aspiring full stack engineers. The reason why, and Brendan knows this, I like folks that have at least 2 years of hands-on experience doing something, and I don't care if you're full stack, I'll play with you on the rest. But I have to have you start either front end or back end. That helps. Then you have a thirst for more knowledge, then you seek out me. And the way that I typically work with projects, this happened, 5 or 10 engineers here. We start off, I don't know shit about you. So let's figure out if we're compatible, see if I can get efficient deliverables out of you, see if you go with our systems. And so as an example and as a use case, so for any further iteration as Brendan is taking the lead on this, here is at least one bad example of something that was done. So as you know, I spent less than an hour on it, so I'm not going to be heartbroken if it all gets scrapped. But also, everything on this should pretty much work, and people should be able to list gigs and not. So all that to say, follow up after this if you would like. So myself is easy to find. We can get you on, we have a Discord going for Sin City programmers now, so for those that are in the Discord world, that's actually been a nice boost. So this does not mean job accomplished. However, since I heard 2 people today say there were opportunities that could have gone there, this is what I did at lunch. You're welcome. Brendan, do you have any? Oh, he's going to clap.
I'm doing it, yes.
All right, thank you. I did the thing.
Yeah.
The thing was done. People go, why do you like WordPress? I go, because this is mostly working. If I took another hour to polish it, we could put a credit card processor on it and be taking payments off to the fucking races. However, it comes with its limitations. That much is true. Brendan, I think you've got a vision for this, which is basically let's look at this, see what we like and don't like, and then carry on with what we were doing before. Is that roughly right?
Yeah. Yeah, given the fact that there has emerged a immediate business need, this was the right solution right now. And I think that we can keep running with this and take this as far as it goes. And whenever we find holes in it, we'll log those holes and we'll figure out exactly what needs to be done, whether that can be done within this very quickly or whether we can basically redesign something with actual real life experience in mind for exactly what our community needs. And I don't know, does everyone agree with that? I think it's a good idea. What do you think, Josh?
You're the leader, and we support you. So this is this is why I love WordPress. You can just do a thing. I didn't do anything. This is not on Amazon, by the way. There's no microservices. This is just, although I will say the AI presentation earlier today made me rethink my relationship with WordPress, and I might have to build some of my own tools. One of the conversations I had with Justin earlier, he's talking about decentralized software. Basically, people making their own stack, their more internal software. You know what? I'm doing a lot more of that. That's pretty much my. Does anybody have any thoughts or feedback or criticism about the job board, other than to say if
That it's on WordPress?
Yeah, I've heard that criticism before, once or twice.
No, this is great, right?
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, to like shed some light, right? We, as a programmer community, we want to build stuff, and we had sessions, right? This is actually, some images of a session where we were breaking down the data model for what we would need, right, to actually build a job board, because a lot of engineers don't get to start from scratch, right? They come into a system that's already exists, and you have these constraints and yada yada, right? And so to get a bunch of engineers to one agree on something, it's already like hard enough. To get engineers to want to build something that like you don't get paid to do is even harder, right? And this is something that the community actually needs. There are a bunch of people here who are talented, who probably want to take on some contract work or are looking for jobs. There's tons of business owners here who can offer you opportunities, and you're probably sitting next to some of them, right? But without having